So, in case you don't know, the channel has a Steam Curators page where I put all my reviews in a short form with a link to the corresponding video. But for me, it's also where I get sent a bunch of games to cover, as well as by email. I've not been doing this for very long now, but I have far too many games to get through. Today I'm going to be talking about 4 of them in a slow and rambling way. I find myself kind of confused by Anomaly type games. I played the Exit 8 when it came out and I walked away from it thinking that it was just kind of weird. You walk through the same corridor over and over and try to detect anomalies. The Exit 8 has you walk forwards if you find nothing and walk backwards if you find something, but either one will lead you to the same corridor again. And if you get it right, the number increases, which when you hit 8 and get that level right, you can leave, you win. The anomalies themselves are really what you're there for, the weirdness. They range from altered text and weird things on the walls that are so difficult to detect that it's easy to walk right past them, and if you do get it wrong, then doing so causes you nothing but lost progress. But the giant spectacles like a river of blood rushing down the corridor or the creepy girls from The Shining killing you, they'll kill you. These are pretty amusing and some of them can be sort of startling, but mainly they also just cause you to lose progress. If you get it wrong or die, you restart and that's all there really is to the game. It's a fun concept. It didn't really get high scores in the written review though. There's no story and not a lot of atmosphere or scares either. What caught me by surprise was just how popular it ended up being, with loads of clones popping up here and there and still some being made to this day. Chiller's Art made Shinkansen Zero, which is the same thing but on a train, and there's some again great unique anomalies in that game, with the twist being that you need to escape 2 compartments, with the game being split into 2, escaping the first and then escaping the second parts of the train. Doubling the length of the game is a bold move and one that does strain my personal interest a bit. It was again weird, but good, and got a near identical score to the Exit 8, albeit a bit lower. The Platform 8 is the true sequel to the Exit 8, and it's pretty much the same as Shinkansen Zero. From what little I've seen of the genre, train horror feels like an appropriate term for it. However, I got sent a game called Robot Anomaly, and I'm sure you can see where this is going. Robot Anomaly, the game I'm really supposed to be talking about, is a bit more complicated. It has you walking through floors in a warehouse full of robots with the goal of deactivating ones that are somehow strange or different, removing the power core and the brain. These start off very obvious. It's hard to miss the robot with 6 arms, but the big spectacles there to startle you aren't as impactful in this game, and really didn't happen very often. Whilst it's different to the other games, the way the level structure is designed is something I really wish remained the same. In the Exit 8, if you don't detect the anomaly, then the game resets you back to number 8 and you're presented with something different. Every run is random. If you don't detect the anomaly in the robot anomaly, you do the same floor again until you detect the anomaly, which isn't too bad to begin with because the anomalies are so obvious, but again, the level design is different. Unlike the 8 corrections you need to get it right in the Exit 8, Robot Anomaly starts you on the 18th floor, asks you to get down to the basement, and then tells you the exit is actually in -24. So that's 42 floors of staring at robots with some spooky moments sprinkled in. The game also gets progressively harder, with the second to last floor taking me 15 minutes to identify the tiny piece of plastic on one of the robot's thighs, to progress to the last floor, which took me 20 minutes before I just gave up. In many ways, the game is more horror-focused than the others, trapped in an endless purgatory of doing the same thing over and over until you get it right. Perception is not my strong point though. I'm terrible at the I'm on observation duty games. I don't think that Robot Anomaly had an initial bad idea. There is something creepy about staring at the robots, waiting for them to jump or do something. If they were more active, then doing this for several floors could have been a fun escalation of tension, as you try to figure out all the robots that are defective before they get you. But the game doesn't seem to be coded to do much of that at all. The big events didn't hit very hard, and ultimately I walked away from it without finishing it because I was bored, which I always say is the worst possible thing you can be in a horror game. The next game sent to me was Paper Pusher, a game where you sit at your desk and sign pieces of paper. You recently got a job. It pays well. You'll be awarded a certain amount of money if you complete the week's worth of work. You make decisions, big ones. The world has hit a level of overpopulation that governments of the world have decided the only way to thin out the population to deal with this problem is by having someone sit down to decide if you're to live or die, and everyone must periodically submit a letter of who they are, how old they are, their body weight, their age, and why they should live. And it's your job to sit down, read these reports, 5 at a time, and decide whether they should live or not, with the understanding that you can't let everyone live. It's a harrowing premise, and a lot of the letters you read are upsetting, some being young kids, some being grandparents, people who are disabled, people who haven't lived yet, people who are on the path to do great things, and some perfectly average, unassuming people who just don't want to die, naturally. And you must choose. To begin with, the choices were very hard, and with each wave came a twinge of regret and disgust that you weren't allowed to let them all live. Some of them begged to die, some were filled with apathy, and maybe those were actually the ones that were the hardest to sign. It emerged as the game went on that the effects of the choices you made weren't really ever apparent. Had you killed someone important? Had you ordered the execution of a child, a scientist that would go on to cure cancer? Well, by the next day at work, you're already blank again. More names, more reasons, and more signing to do. There comes a point where it doesn't really matter who you choose because you'll never see the consequences of it. I might as well have worn a blindfold and played the role of the Grim Reaper themselves, leaving their lives to chance. That disassociation to the horrible things you were doing is more horrifying than anything else. Why even read the pieces of paper? Leave it up to chance. The irony of doing something incredibly important, literally life-changing work that you could just ignore to get over with faster, to get the money and go home, was the kind of commentary I wasn't really ready for. Paper Pusher had no scares and only featured some small locations with very little in them. It was conceptually frightening and ended up feeling worse the more and more I thought about it. The next game is in the same vein as Lunacid. It's a fantastic game. Labyrinth of the Demon King was a game I already wanted and was suddenly sent to me by the developers in random sheer luck. It wasn't quite what I expected, and I do have my gripes with it, but it delivers exactly what it promises. You play as a disgraced samurai who ends up in a strange land and is suddenly tasked with defeating the Demon King. There's a lot more to it than this, and I'm probably remembering parts of it wrong, but the game is deliberately dense and confusing. You find notes that tell you about various horrific interpretations of hell based on beliefs at the time, and character dialogue from punished people who talk of the cruelty of the land, and that's all you have to go on. It's not as much as a Souls-like as it is a Kingsfield-like, with the deliberate first-person combat to get you to think about your actions as they unfold thanks to the stamina gauge. It also forces you to think about your inventory more carefully as well as ammo for things like bows, since you can only hold so many arrows. If you're bleeding, you can only use nasty bandages, which will cause an infection and lead to poisoning, so you need to sometimes weigh the options up between getting poisoned or bleeding, and whether you can afford the resources to deal with both or just lose the health. Its labyrinth is dense, dark and foreboding, and the atmosphere is nauseating with the dark water and rot-stained walls and heavy soundtrack make you feel like you're crawling through a deteriorating paper world. There's a map, but it's hard to tell where you want to go, and the only gripe I have with it is that it's sometimes directionless, and you can spend ages poking and prodding at the game without any progress. Labyrinth of the Demon King is a game I just haven't finished, and I'm unsure how close to the end I am, but at the moment, it's a very good game, a pretty good horror game, and something pleasantly unique. The last game is White Room Protocol, which turned out to be a demo, and I have very little, if anything, to say about the game itself. It starts off with a compelling framing as you're sent into the memory of your past to deal with something traumatic and told that you'll sustain psychological damage if you fail. But once you enter the memory, it's a haunted house simulator, which is an unflattering name from it, but really it's a haunted house where you walk around and things unfold as you complete specific tasks and reach destinations. It's a very scripted and familiar sort of game in the vein of Too Many Things to List. It doesn't even do things badly. Some scripted events are a bit rigid, the sound design is good, and everything else is pretty satisfactory, but it's the same as most other games that have taken this formula and perfected it. It doesn't have anything that really makes the gameplay or experience feel worth playing. Sure, there's the framing, but it doesn't make the core experience any different based on the demo. I think a lot of the time I don't bother to cover a game or see it in the store and choose not to play it. It's because it doesn't stand out in any way, or doesn't have anything that I haven't seen before. More of the same is how a lot of games in the genre feel sometimes, and maybe when I'm having them put in front of me over and over, the boundaries start to blur. But as much as I complained about Robot Anomaly being slow and boring, at least it tried to do something different, even though it was working from a tried and tested formula. I love more innovation from horror games, something new, to take mechanics that work and put them into environments where they might not, experiment a bit. But we're in a market where if it's popular, then people will try to imitate success, which has always been the case. And whilst White Room Protocol doesn't do anything wrong, when the demo was over I felt nothing much from the experience whatsoever, because I'd seen most of it in a different form. It's hard to muster the enthusiasm to write something about it critically, assessing what it did good and what it did bad, when your overall feelings are personified by a shrug. Horror can be a homogeneous, stagnant pool of regurgitated ideas, like every genre really, and I'm getting a little tired of it. I will be curating games I choose to review far more carefully in the future, and whilst I'll still be accepting games sent to me, I'm going to be politely declining more games, maybe for my own sake. I'm taking a little time off right now, working slowly on Halloween. I still have some videos that I'm going to be working on, Desensitization is ironically one, and they'll be out eventually. Thank you for watching if you did so today.
Will still remain. I need an ocean full of love, although I know the holes will still remain.